an extraordinary decision out of the Supreme Court this morning. Chief Justice Roberts has sided with the more liberal members of the court in upholding the health care law and the individual mandate that was the signature achievement of the Obama administration. But he did it in a very unusual way. He did not support their main argument, which was the Commerce Clause is plastic enough, flexible enough to give the government the authority to force people to buy insurance. Instead, he used a secondary argument they offered, said this is in effect a tax, that you are the penalty that is imposed on people who don't buy insurance is the equivalent of a tax. It's collected by the Internal Revenue Service, and therefore it is allowed under the Constitution, which gives the government the power to tax. Neil, what's the political impact of this extraordinary decision going to be?
You know, I think John said it right a minute ago. He said it was a mammoth win for the Obama administration. I think there's no other way to really put it. The Romney side can still stick to the idea that he'll repeal it on day one or start to move to repeal it on day one should he win in November. But I think it will resonate in a kind of hollow way now. I mean, we have all three branches of government now have basically sided with this law, including a decision written by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who, of course, was picked by George Bush in the last administration. And I think that, I don't think it now means it's inviolable or inviolate, but it definitely protects the whole law, and it gives, as everyone's called it, the signature achievement of the Obama administration. I guess they can now continue to use that word achievement as opposed to a word like failure.
Well, certainly they can, and it does uphold their signature achievement. But you're not suggesting that it lessens this as a political issue, are you? I mean, your own polls, our Wall Street Journal, NBC News poll shows that there's not widespread support in the public for the individual mandate. I don't suppose the Supreme Court decision is suddenly going to make people like something that they didn't like yesterday.
I don't think it will necessarily, but it'll be interesting to see going forward whether it really is something that Romney decides to stake more of his campaign on. At the moment, he's talked about it as sort of a line that he uses at most campaign appearances and rallies, but it's not a central part of his campaign. And what our poll did show is that there's a plurality of people who don't like this law, but it doesn't mean that there's anything close to a majority that doesn't like it. It's extremely muddled. And, a large portions of Obama's constituency is very favorable towards this law. So it's hard to see that this is necessarily going to scramble, the electoral logic going forward or give Romney all that much more ammunition going towards November.
Okay, so you say that that Governor Romney is going to have to think twice about making this a huge interest because there's a mixed public opinion. But President Obama is going to have to think twice as well, right? Just because he gets a Supreme Court win doesn't mean that people are suddenly going to fall in love with the individual mandate.
Yeah, I think that's true. But, it's interesting. It has been over the last few weeks. They've even adopted the whole term Obamacare, which was a derogatory term to start. I think they like the idea of care coming after Obama. Maybe it gives them the right kind of feeling. And they, it's become kind of slowly seen by Obama and his campaign as a net positive, not a big one. I don't think they're going to go out and be extolling this in a loud way over the next few months. But my hunch, and I may be wrong, is that this is actually going to kind of put the issue a little bit more to the side and a little bit more in hiding than it is to inflame it.
Boy, you would hardly guess that from the activity of the Tea Party activists outside the Supreme Court right now. I guess some of it, Neil, comes down to the question of how much of this campaign is going to be about motivating your base supporters and how much of it is going to be about appealing to those independents that are in between.
If Romney is having to motivate his base supporters, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. You look at the immigration issue that came up, which also turned out, you could see it in our polling, to be a huge win for Obama, and Romney has walked the most delicate line since then, and he's already stirred up some opposition from Rush Limbaugh and others on the right that he's not being firm enough, not taking a more extreme position on immigration. It just seems hard for me to believe that he's going to try to move it all towards the sort of Tea Party side of his party when he needs to really look towards, the states in the middle of the country and the voters in the middle of the electorate that he really needs to win.
Well, so maybe it maybe it motivates his base without him having to do anything, and he can take a more moderate appeal to the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has to do that. And for the most part, his base is pretty much with him. I mean, his base really does not like the president, does not like this law, does not like a whole bunch of other things. So the tricky thing for him, and I think what's hard all the way around for his message at the moment, is how does he go after the certain sort of silos that he needs to appeal to, including Hispanics, to push him over the edge in some of these places. And it's an easier thing at the moment for Obama to do in these various directed sort of directives that he's been pursuing. And I could imagine Obama, using this decision, again, to go all the more strongly after women, after Hispanics, et cetera, for who actually like this law a lot. He's able to target those people more effectively.
I understand we're going to hear from President Obama later today on this decision.
He's been saying, there was something that came out that it was going to be a few hours from now. Romney is actually in Washington. He's meant to be up on the Hill. I think it's going to be very interesting, of course, what the president says. In some ways, to me anyway, even more interesting to see how Romney decides to thread this needle in what his position's going to be going forward, and whether he'll put out something more specific than just his pledge to try to repeal the law should he win in November.
And how about Chief Justice Roberts in the political debate? I've been arguing this morning that this is in some ways a victory for common sense, that if you look at the history of health care policy, the individual mandate was devised in order to create an alternative to socialized medicine. And nobody has ever questioned the constitutionality of a socialized medicine plan where you tax people and then the government provides them health care. And so in a way, he's gone back to what was originally a conservative position and what drove Mitt Romney to adopt an individual mandate in Massachusetts in the first place. But I'm not sure that's the way Chief Justice Roberts is going to be viewed in the political sphere.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating because, most, it would seem, constitutional scholars believe that this thing should be upheld. And yet the conventional wisdom has just swung so much in the other direction here in Washington that in the end, this was going to be a bruising day for Obama. And yet what we've seen is that, Chief Justice Roberts, similar to what he said in his own confirmation hearings, about the kind of humility that he was going to respect tradition, et cetera, in the end went to that side. And what's been funny, you can feel it already, is sort of diffused the left's, building rancor about the politicization of the Supreme Court and all the proposals that were being put forward to alter its makeup. And all of a sudden, he emerges as a sort of unlikely hero of the left for having gone the direction that he did.
The question will be, how much is he going to be vilified by the right? He may well be concerned about the politicization of the court. He may be trying to influence that somewhat. I'm not sure that the political system is going to allow him to take that middle ground position.
No, I agree. And it's fascinating. I don't know. None of us know how much, justices in general weigh public sentiment. And, we've all seen how polling numbers for the Supreme Court itself have really gone down. It's held in less and less esteem. And to what extent Roberts himself was concerned about that, and that might have animated some of his thinking a bit, that he did not want to see the court going over to, the side where it was basically striking down something that was approved by the other two branches of government. But it seems to be that's certainly the case, and whether it will, inflame all the more the passions on the right, it seems likely to do that, and it's happening right now.